Hi, this is Hubert Scheer, General Manager of the SiR Academy, and I believe it's now time to discuss Chapter 6 in our training tracks, and that will go how to develop all the content after we have redesigned the process and that we have profiled the customer, the end user. So what is the content needed for that? And that's going to be a completely changing role for marketing as they were doing in the past. So with me, I have again Olaf,
Hi, Hubert.
the SiR Intel researcher. What is really changing in the content creation when we are talking about this process?
Well, maybe we should briefly address first the changing role of marketing, which is really interesting when we see the companies we've been working with, and we often started in operations, looking at operational processes, and actually then marketing very often was kind of not so much interested or involved. But after a while, they saw that we were interacting with the customer, starting to know more about the customer, and then they wanted to kind of get involved. And in the beginning, it sometimes can be kind of strange because they use their metrics like satisfaction, net promoter score, and then suddenly we say that there's other metrics that are actually more actionable and more usable in customer interaction environments. And after a while, they see that. But it's interesting that very often we have to pitch and work with marketeers to actually see. But that we dealt with in other trainings, like where we talk about the metrics for success and so on. But it's not just the role of the marketeers, the role of marketing in general that is changing. So where brands typically, made a promise to the customer and that they wanted to be consistently delivered by service operations or through applications and so on. We now see that from a customer perspective that they expect brands to be more relevant in the interaction. So it means that the marketing needs to get more grounded. I think, by the way, that movement has already started when we see marketeers getting more engaged with customers and so on. So we see that brands who, by tradition, had an issue to deal with the diversity of customers. Brands were originally invented, so to say, back in the 60s, to actually send a single message to a large group of customers. So somewhere in their history, in the DNA of marketing, there is something like, well, we're not going to deal with every customer individually. So a brand needs to have some communality, or seeking communality among customers. And now, of course, we put the complete individuality as the customer, as a premise. But that should not scare marketing off, because indeed when we look at the processes and when we look at the customer profile, we just invite marketeers to start doing or practicing Goodwill differentiated marketing. What we are asking is, well, for customers on different levels of Goodwill, where there is how can we gear up the relationship, creating relationship or enhancing the relationship, spiraling up Goodwill, but also, and that is new for them, is to how can we facilitate loyalty. But I really think for marketing what is new is that in the past, when we were looking at loyalty as the outcome of customer experience, marketing was mostly obsessed and busy with, and rightfully so, with designing this customer experience. Now that we see that the customer experience is co-created with the customer, but we are looking at loyalty as an interactive process, we now cannot say that, okay, we have created a loyal customer, so we are done. And so the point is, now that we have a loyal customer, we need to capitalize on that loyalty and put the customer to work rather than reward him. Or we also need to reward the customer, but we also need to activate the customer. So what we see is that I think in the world where the opportunity lies is that there's a lot of loyalty in the world that is actually kind of left in the dark and not being activated and capitalized upon. And so there I see that brands and marketeers will now have to start to look, how can we fill between customer experiences, the bridge, and we have contact points in contact center, in apps, but there's also, when the customer is not having touch points, how can we fill that with content that activates the customer, that builds the relationship, but also, it might be that during the touch point that we need to include relational content and loyalty content.
So I believe it's very important that the changing role for marketing is definitely there, because they were creating demand in many cases. Now in this case, it's not creating demand, it is creating a kind of a dialogue with the end user. So how would you classify, so to speak, the areas where they have to work on? Because on the one hand, there is the typical relationship, marketing, so to speak. But what we want to achieve is loyalty.
as content, as a process.
And co-creation
Yeah.
with the end user of content and so forth.
Yeah.
So how would you classify that? Is because first of all, what you need to do is open up the people.
Yeah.
To say, okay, who is willing to
Yeah.
cooperate?
Yeah.
And what then? How is that going to happen?
First, again, important to note is that all the work that has been done on creating customer journeys and customer experiences is generally good work. You know, every effort to improve that is a good effort. Most loyalty programs are actually more relationship building programs. That's interesting. So because these programs are not facilitating loyalty, but they try to improve the connection.
Examples?
Well, you have these benefits programs, you have club programs, you have like these lounges where you have these preferred treatments and so on. So it is clear that for returning customers, a lot of efforts are being put into place, which is great. Convenience benefits, so accelerated or expedited check-ins and so on. So
a lot of card, gold cards, and
a lot of good work is being done. So, but the point is that all turns into content, which may or may not be more applicable and valuable for different customers. We must, for instance, know, and it's a really important premise, is that loyalty generally only, or discounts only account for 15 to 20% of loyalty. So you cannot say that we have a reward program and then build loyalty, because loyalty, there's 85% of loyalty is not determined by the level of benefits. So the point is that marketers who are going through the process here with us will actually see an opportunity to see how they can fill up the other 85%. See, there's a huge opportunity to work on loyalty rather than just being in the regular tracks. On top of that, not all customers actually appreciate benefits or discounts because they feel that they're being bribed into loyalty. Like if you buy more, then we get you more benefits, which is a kind of a transactional deal and which is not intrinsically motivated. And for some customers, that really has a kind of a counterproductive effect. For some customers, it's positive. But the point again is, marketers create programs, but you need to take feedback and adjust these programs to the customer. Another important thing is that what for marketing has always been kind of excluded is that a first-time customer is a loyal customer. And it's kind of strange because very often the first buyers, when people have done a lot of effort to find information about your product and then they buy, that's actually the moment that they're most enthusiastic about your product, because they have overcome all the thresholds and then they go into it. And then we say them like, well, you first need to, buy 50 times before we consider you a loyal customer, which is already like a kind of a showdown. So when we have enthusiastic, involved customers, first buyers, then we also need to facilitate those and really say like, thank you for being loyal, even if you have only made one purchase. So there's a lot of new combinations that we need to deal with and that we actually can tackle, and where there's value to catch.
Yeah, and I believe it's absolutely right when you say when you have a company or a customer who buys for the first time, that was the right choice at that moment for them. So definitely they will not say, I made a mistake, I did a misbuy, or this purchase was wrong. No. So what you're saying is that you have to take and capture this moment in order to use them, not abuse them, but use them as ambassadors, as people who can really speak for your company and saying this is why you are better differentiated from all the other ones.
Interesting is that traditionally, when we look at loyalty programs, or rather relationship programs, because loyalty, I don't know, is that brands have been able to deal with really like the high-end ambassadors, like the returning customers really well, your gold partners, and also with new customers. Generally, you lured them in. It's a negative word, but in positive sense, you seduce them, entice them into buying your product with either discounts or with a good proposal. But what we often see in loyalty programs is that's the mid-segment. It's what we call the silver frustrated customers, who are actually loyal, but they don't feel that they get all the benefits and that they're being recognized. And actually we see that those often report the lowest satisfaction. So high satisfaction is in your very loyal group and in your early loyal group, but in the mid loyal group, which is big, and you need to go through that, you need to keep these guys on board and not say, because some of them will never become or turn into more buyers, but they can do more for you. So they can express their loyalty in different ways than buying more for you. And we have always interpreted loyalty in terms of buying more, but some people have just like a natural boundary to their budget or their purchase frequency, and then saying that you only get so many benefits is really like a proposal that is not a good loyalty proposal.
It is quite logic that depending on the business you're in, the repeat sales is depending on the product or service that you are purchasing.
That's it, yeah.
And the other thing is, of course, that you say, well, how large is the customer? What is the budget constraints and so forth? I do believe so that, well, the whole marketing efforts that have been doing is going to change, or what they've been doing. For instance, one of the elements is a typical customer testimonial, but in many cases, some people doubt that this is really a true story, a success story, and that a customer is testifying why he's satisfied with what he has been doing. So how believable are these things still? Are these kind of things still valid, yes or no?
Well, I think the point is that when people go with us through this program, through this marketing-based program at Track Training, I think that we will look differently at loyalty and see many opportunities. I give you one example. If you now go as a first-time customer through a check-in in a hotel, they often ask you to become or subscribe for the membership program, which is basically way too early. The interesting thing is, if we really look in terms of what early customers can do as loyal customers, is simply discuss their next visit or their next purchase. People are satisfied, they're happy first time. Why don't you just say, like, when will we have the pleasure of seeing you again, and put effort into timing, planning the next visit, and people are open for that. But they are not open already to enroll for your membership program. See, so because they just consider that as a product or something put in. So what we say is that your membership program is great, but it just is a proposal that comes further down the road. And it's the same what we had with customer feedback surveys. You cannot ask a first-time customer to fill out 100 questions about your product. Some customers, loyals, high on Goodwill, will do that. So actually, there's a lot of programs that exist that are fine, but they just come way too early in the relationship and loyalty building process. And this is what we, during this track, we will start looking more realistically about what relationship stimuli from a marketing perspective can be squeezed between customer experience moments and possibly during the customer experience, which are way more natural from a customer perspective.
Yes. Yes, and I believe this is a good ending in order to say, okay, first of all, we have to check the readiness of the customer in order to be participative in this whole project or in this journey. The second thing is, of course, the intimacy. How deep and how intimate can you go with your customer? Once the customer is more open to cooperate, then of course we can look for a certain collaboration. The role of marketing is definitely changing, because automatically the content that we need to provide from the marketing to the end user is going to be completely different. That is exactly what we try to achieve with this track.